What's going on, guys? It's Goodthalion, and welcome back to Destiny. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a subject and talking about some stuff that I have not hit really on my channel yet, and that's going to be the player versus player portion of the game, the Crucible. Now, in the alpha, the Crucible really felt like Halo multiplayer. And while I did love Halo multiplayer, it was fun, it had a nice formula to it, it had a very smooth back and forth feel. I don't think that Destiny is really going to be identical to that because I've played a lot of MMOs. I did arena combat and battlegrounds inside World of Warcraft for a good amount of time. Well over 4 years I spent doing PvP in World of Warcraft, and I have to say that Destiny's PvP reminds me of like a mix between what you would see in a Halo and inside an MMO. Why? Because the gear that you get inside the game can be brought into the Crucible. And what we saw in the alpha was really only the tip of the iceberg as far as gear, as far as player progression, as far as differentiating skill sets, if I can learn to use fucking words today, and as well as different metas between team builds, and there really wasn't a lot of team play. I didn't run into a lot of actually organized teams inside of the alpha. So what we saw was not really indicative of what we're gonna see at endgame, and I have a pretty good idea of what we're gonna see at endgame. First off, let's go over how the systems work as far as getting gear inside the arenas, inside the Crucible. Every week you could get upwards to 100 Crucible points. You get Crucible points from winning and just taking part inside of the Crucible. Also, you could get Crucible points by doing bounties that you find inside the tower. Bounties can be done with certain things like kill 10 warlocks, and you'll get some bounty points, a bounty completed, and you'll get like a boatload of Crucible rep, and you'll get a boatload of Crucible points. But again, those Crucible points do cap at 100 for the week. So once a week, your Crucible cap will reset. When I looked at the Crucible armor sets, it looked like to get a complete set of armor and a weapon, it will take just around 550 Crucible points. This is not including the insignia slot, which really doesn't change your stats. It's mostly just for show. So I'm talking your heads, your boots, your gloves, and your chest, and one weapon will be around 550 Crucible points. So if you want to get a complete set of Crucible gear, you're looking at spending 5 weeks. 5.5 weeks, really. So 5 weeks, and then you can, on the first day of the 6th week, you could get your last piece of Crucible gear. Now, this might not seem very appealing to a lot of people, but what this does is it makes it so people with a large amount of time to invest will not advance through the Crucible much quicker than everybody else. Everybody is pretty much capped at getting the same gear as everybody else. Now, whether or not they will offer rewards for people who perform better in the Crucible isn't said or stated at this point, though I do see that as a possibility. Most of these games with competitive aspects do have some sort of little perk, one little thing for people who perform better. But as far as people who put in more time, they won't be able to get more Crucible gear than a guy who only has enough time to get his 100-point Crucible cap. How long does it take to get the 100 points in Crucible? Well, you could probably play 6 hours in an entire week and you would still hit your point cap for Crucible. Meaning if you only have an hour, 2 hours out of a given day, whatever, then you could still hit your Crucible cap, meaning you're still progressing, meaning you are staying competitive as the game is going on. Outside of that, you can fill up the other gear slots with stuff that you find outside of the Crucible, though, as you can bring in gear from shit like strikes, stuff you find in the wild, shit you get from doing quests. You could bring in all of that gear with you to the Crucible. So there is going to be a situation where people are getting gear from the Crucible, and once they hit their gear cap or their Crucible cap for the week, they will be getting gear from PvE content. And I like this because it really promotes seeing both sides of the game. You know what I mean? While Crucible gear does seem to be stat-wise better for PvP. The bonuses in it seem to be better for player versus player combat, and having a full Crucible set, from the looks of it, does seem to be better than having a Crucible and Strike set mix. People early game are going to want to be getting that Strike gear and those rare drops and strikes and bringing them into the Crucible. Also, there's going to be unique legendaries that can only be found inside of Strikes and in the wild, so you're going to want to take advantage of both parts of the game. Players that come in and think, I am only going to go to the Crucible, I am only going to PvP, they're going to be left behind, okay? Destiny is a very broad game. These are all my opinions, by the way. I feel like these players are going to be left behind because people that are doing both Crucible and doing PvE content on the side will have access to stuff that the people who do just one or just the other won't. So while you don't have to pour in a gross amount of time into the Crucible to stay competitive, you might have to pour in just a little bit of extra time into doing raids and instances and whatever you want to call them. I call them raids and instances because I'm a MMO player. But if you're just doing strikes in the wild, you're going to want to put a little bit of time into that just so you can get extra gear for the Crucible. So how do I feel about how the Crucible plays? Like I said, it's a lot like how Halo played. But that's just because this is the alpha. It feels like Halo in the alpha. But once things start to progress, you're going to see different characters and builds break apart, and it's not going to have that exactly like Halo feel, but it will still feel good. That's my opinion on it. It'll still feel good. It has the same shooting mechanics, but the way you approach the Crucible as a PvP player will be slightly different than it was for the alpha. You're not going to just go in, shotgun, and melee a guy and expect the fight to be over. It won't be like that. You know, once we get into a situation where Titans have dome shields and Warlocks can resurrect their teammates, there's going to be a lot of, we're going to go into this node, you focus him, we'll all focus this one character down, then we're going to turn to the other guys. Because if you don't play like that, then you're going to get into situations where teams are resurrecting and really pulling off a lot of CC and defensive moves, and you're going to have to go in with a plan. You're gonna have to go in with a plan. You're going to have to treat it like it is a tactical situation when everybody is fully spec'd out. That's how I foresee the game playing out, and I think that brings another level of competition, and it makes it a lot more interesting than just straight up shoot 'em up PvP, because we've seen that, okay? That's been around for a long time, and I look forward to how intricate the Destiny Crucible will get. Now I'm going to do some more in-depth videos on the Crucible. I'm going to let you know how I feel about certain aspects of the Crucible, but I wanted to do this video as sort of an overview of how I'm feeling about the Crucible, how I feel it will go direction-wise, and I wanted you guys to get a good idea of what you can expect from late-game Crucible, because honestly, early-game PvP is not PvP. It's just not. Anybody who's played an MMO will let you know that early-game PvP is drastically different from end-game PvP. And as much as Bungie does not want to sell Destiny as an MMO, it is an MMO. But without all the negative stigma that goes along with MMOs, and that's why I'm so excited about this game, and I hope I could get you guys excited about this game. As always, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Please leave that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video or found it any way informational. And I'll see you guys back in Destiny.